This is going to be a good one. Greetings, my fearless frontliners, my fellow guardians of the galleries. I'm William Young, and this is my channel. Back in May of 2022, I was invited to testify at the first ever Blue Line Commission hosted by One Voice United in Washington, D.C. And guys, it was an incredible opportunity to discuss the state of corrections in the United States and to explore ideas for improvement. And among the guests that were there was a contingent from Norway, and they were there to present the model of incarceration, their model of incarceration. And if you're not familiar with the Norway Prison Model, where have you been? It's talked about all the time. It's touted as like the gold standard in corrections, right? Humane facilities, focus on rehabilitation, commitment to staff, a commitment to reintegration. And it sounds like a dream, right? It sounds too good to be true. But here's the question, and I get this all the time. Can the Norway prison model work here in the United States? And I say no. So in this video, I'm going to break down why I feel that way, why I feel like the Norway prison model wouldn't work here in the United States. But before we begin, I want to thank the members of the Just Corrections Patreon community, the JCP, for their support. You guys are the only reason that I can keep creating content like this, and I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And if you're listening and you're watching and you want to contribute, please consider becoming a member, and I'll throw a link in the description below. Or if you're not about commitments, if it freaks you out a little bit to commit to something or you're not a joiner, then just click that little thank you button that's right there underneath the screen where I'm talking and support us in that way. Both of those avenues are extremely appreciated. All right, let's get into it. Why won't the Norway prison model fit in the United States? Look, there's no denying the appeal of the Norwegian prison model, but the truth is comparing Norway's prison system to ours is like comparing apples to something that has nothing to do with apples, right? Their system is designed for a smaller, more cohesive society with a vastly different culture, political and social dynamic. But get this, and this is, I just read this, right? And I'll post a link in the show notes, the episode description from the conversation. I read an article. Even Norway, which is celebrated for its progressive approach, is also now grappling with overcrowding and understaffing, right? Welcome to the party. So according to this article, facilities are operating over capacity, staffing shortages are rising, and resources are stretched super thin. Does that sound familiar? Well, it should, because those are some of the very same challenges that we're facing right here at home. So if Norway, with its smaller incarcerated population and strong societal commitment to rehabilitation, is struggling, then how can we here possibly implement their model on a much larger scale? So let's break it down a little bit. So here are a few reasons that I feel like the Norway prison model wouldn't work here at home. And number one is cultural differences and community commitment. Now, Norway's approach to incarceration, it works, right? Because it reflects the value of their society. There's widespread support for rehabilitation, at least what I've heard, over punishment. Communities believe in second chances and are willing to invest money in programs that help incarcerated individuals successfully reintegrate into society. But here in the U.S., it's a different mindset. Our cultural mindset is different. Our approach to incarceration is rooted in retribution, right? Many communities view rehabilitation effort as being a soft. So without a cultural shift, what I feel is the foundation for the Norway model simply doesn't exist. And that takes me to leadership, right? The leadership's reluctance to invest in staffs. Norway invests heavily in their correctional staff, treating them as professionals who are integral to the success of their system. Their staff are highly trained in communication, de-escalation, and rehabilitation. And the training in Norway to be a CO is 2 years, right, guys? 2 years, and you walk away with a degree. Here in the U.S., we get like 4 to 6 weeks. Here, staff are overworked, they're underpaid, they're undervalued, and that's because legislators and leadership haven't prioritized the kind of investment in staff training and well-being that the Norway prison model, the Norwegian model, requires. And if we can't invest in our staff, how can we expect them to carry out a system that demands such a higher level of emotional intelligence and engagement? You know, I listened to a podcast of this guy who was working towards building a new facility, and his plan to run this facility was based on the Norwegian prison model. And so I listened to his planning to implement it, and he talked about all of the programming and the design features and everything, but he never mentioned staff, and he never mentioned how he was going to train staff and invest in staff to make this work. And that's a big problem. Number 3, staff training and the us versus them mentality. So in Norway, correctional staff are trained to work alongside incarcerated individuals, fostering mutual respect and understanding. Okay, so think about the programming units in your facilities and how you view the officers that work in those units, and just in any unit. How do you view the officers? How do you talk about the officers and the staff that don't treat inmates like they're inmates? See, in the U.S., our training focuses on security and control and maintaining that us versus them dynamic. And this isn't a critique, right? It's a necessity in our facilities where violence is a constant threat. And this goes back to that cultural mindset, that cultural difference. How we treat each other out on the streets largely affects how we treat each other inside. Do you see that? So transitioning to a Norwegian style model would require like a complete overhaul of how we train correctional staff. And let's be honest, most agencies, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, the resources, or the political will to make that happen. Number 4, let's talk about overcrowding and understaffing. Even now, Norway, right, is struggling with overcrowding and understaffing, leading to increased tension that we're well aware of, challenges that we're well aware of, right? So imagine scaling their model to a system as large as ours, right, which incarcerates millions of individuals. It's simply not realistic. Their inmate to officer ratio in Norway is like 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or something like that. So what's the ratio at your place? Put in the comments below. What's the ratio at your place? 1-to-60, 1-to-70, 1-to-500? It's a little different. So what can we do? Is there nothing? Are we just where we are forever? If the Norwegian prison model won't work here, does that mean that we're doomed to keep repeating the same mistakes? Absolutely not. While we can't exactly copy or replicate the Norway's model wholesale, right, we can take steps to improve our system in ways that are realistic for us and will be effective. And here's how. Step 1 for me is to educate the community and the correctional leadership. Start by educating the community and the leaders about realities of corrections, right? Not the fantasies, not what the movies say, not what we want it to be, but the actual realities of where we're at right now. So help them understand the challenges that we face and why investing in staff and facilities is critical, not just for the incarcerated individuals, right, but for the safety and well-being of everybody involved. Because here's the reality. Here's what I want you to hear. You can't have a better, safer environment for the incarcerated, for them, if you don't have a better, safer environment for us, for staff, and vice versa. Number 2, we have to demand action. Change is not going to happen. Change will not happen unless we ask for it, unless we demand it. So advocate for yourself, advocate for better pay, advocate for training, advocate for more resources for your correctional staff. Push for policies that focus on wellness, that focus on rehabilitation without compromising the safety of anybody. And number 3, we have to invest in staff. The success of any system starts with its people, right? Correctional staff, they need proper training. They need proper support. They need wellness programs to handle the daily challenges of the job. You can't run a facility the way you want to run a facility if your staff are exhausted. If they've been up for 30 hours and slept for 4, it just doesn't happen. You have to take care of your staff. You have to invest in your staff. It's not only good for them, but it's good for the entire system. I just said you can't have a better, safer environment for the incarcerated if you don't have a better, safer environment for staff. It's got to be a joint effort. And that was the beauty of the Blue Line Commission that I spoke at in Washington. Is we had both. There were people on the panel that had both backgrounds. Some from the correctional space, some were prison reformers. But at the end of the day, we all have the same concern. We want jails and prisons to be more humane for the people that are inside of that. And that means the people that are doing time and the people that are working. It's the same thing, right? That I said when I testified, and this is in my book, and I stole this from a supervisor that I used to work with. The reality is that the incarcerated are like the smokers, and staff are like secondhand smokers. But at the end of the day, we all feel the effects. We all get the cancer. And that's what it is. So when you're talking about making changes, when you're talking about the benefits of making changes, you're helping everybody. So both people, all parties need to come to the table. And that was the beautiful thing about this. So we have to be realistic also. We have to be patient. We are trying to change the direction of this gigantic ocean liner that has been pushing forward since the beginning of time. And we know that change takes time. And we're not going to overhaul the system. We're not going to change things overnight. So instead of chasing like these large sweeping reforms. Let's focus on small, achievable steps. We can improve mental health services for staff, expand training programs for staff, build partnerships with community organizations and rehabilitation services. Take all of it one step at a time. Eat that elephant one bite at a time. Look, the Norway Prison Model is an inspiring example, right? But it's not a realistic solution for the United States right now. So instead of trying to replicate it, instead of talking about it every time we turn around, we need to focus on what is going to work for our system. And by educating communities, by demanding action, by investing in staff, we can make meaningful progress, but it won't happen overnight. We have to have patience. We have to have perseverance. We have to have patience. We have to have persistence. And together, we can create a better system for everybody. Guys, if you like this video, if you found value in this video, then straight punch that little like icon. Comment and share this content with anyone and everyone that you think may be interested. And if you're looking for more premium correctional content, then go ahead and check out this video right here. And when you're done with that, check out this one right here. All right, guys, that's all I got. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.